Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live video. Today it is December the 20th. The 20th? Does that say the 20th? Oh my gosh, we are 5 days away from Christmas. Wow. All right. I don't know why the passage of time just continuing to accelerate continues to amaze me. Today it is Tuesday, December the 20th, 2022. I'm Kerry Holzman. Thank you guys for joining me today. On this channel, I've been sharing with you a number of PC builds, PC repairs, PC upgrades, laptop repairs, laptop upgrades, router information, Wi-Fi information, interviews with people in the industry, people who represent companies that offer products and services that I really use in my real repair and support business. Been in the business professionally since 1991. Started this YouTube channel in 2008. I've hosted a radio show that was coast to coast for 6 years on computers and technology. I've authored a couple of books through McGraw-Hill, and I have authored articles online at places like Tom's Hardware, PC magazines like Smart Computing, which I don't think is around anymore, and a number of trade magazines for the industry. Perhaps one of my most infamous things I've done for the industry was bringing awareness to the leaking capacitor plague that was affecting pretty much all motherboards made at that time in the early 2000s. And I was in a unique position being a technician, but also sort of touching on journalism, because the problem that I have with a lot of journalists in the tech sector is they're not techs. So they're just interpreting a press release or something off the AP, and they parrot it back out in their own words. But if they don't understand what it is they're talking about, then when they, to avoid plagiarizing, when they put it in their own words, they often completely get it wrong. And so I just thought, I'm not a writer, but I'll start writing some articles because at least they'll be technically accurate, and I'll let an editor clean up my writing. And so that's how all of that went down. And I do not enjoy writing. I don't like it. I'm a perfectionist. At least in the old days with a typewriter, at some point you just let it go instead of retyping the whole thing. But in the era of cut and paste and WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. I can drag and move stuff around, move paragraphs, move sentences. I never leave it alone. It took me 9 months to write the Healthy PC. Now, everything I've written is from, 10 plus years ago in this regard. I'm moving on to things I really, truly enjoy, rather than correcting what I thought was a wrong, which is these just journalists that cover multiple topics. One day they're reporting about a new restaurant opening. The next day they're telling you information about a virus or something like that, where they're getting the information wrong. New Wi-Fi standards that make your printer faster. I don't know how that works, but just as some examples of some of the nonsense. And I thought, well, I could do better than that. So same as for the YouTube channel, the same on the radio show, the same on writing the book. It was all based on being very disappointed with what was out there. And though I didn't consider myself a radio show host or an author, I just knew I could do better than what I was seeing. And that's how that all happened. It's kind of sad when you think about it, that I didn't have the self-confidence to say, hey, I'm very knowledgeable in my field and I should lead the way. All I said was, oh my gosh, I'm reading this stuff. These people don't know what they're talking about. And this is really simple stuff to me. So that's how I got to where I am. And the channel continues to evolve, and as we approach 2023, you'll see some changes here on Studio B. I finally got this shelf put together and moved the streaming computer back. Do you like it? I'm not done yet. I may actually turn the whole studio 180 degrees. But if I do that, it'll probably be over the holiday weekend, somewhere between Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And I may not like it. I might do all that work for nothing only to turn it all back around. But I want to start 2023 off right. And I've been focused a lot on content that I'm particularly fond of currently. Things come and go. Interests come and go. Wi-Fi is starting to get boring. Ever since Wi-Fi 6, I don't see any excitement with Wi-Fi 6E, nor do I see any excitement with Wi-Fi 7. I will get a Wi-Fi 7 router because TP-Link's got a couple that look really cool. It's a really stupid reason. But I have no use for it, not yet. So if you're not running a Wi-Fi 6 router, wireless router, if your Wi-Fi router is Wi-Fi 5 or below, highly recommend you upgrade that router. You will do yourself a wonderful favor. There's some great deals of returned items over at Amazon that, inventory comes and goes, but these are like new products. Every single time I've gotten returned routers from Amazon, they're listed as used. They might be listed as having cosmetic blemishes. I have never seen one with a cosmetic blemish, ever. They always work. And I always make sure it's coming from Amazon warehouse, not from some other seller. That way I know I have peace of mind to return it for any reason at all. Today, and as we march forward with the content here on the channel, I'm going to be reviewing a lot more of these mini PCs. I'll be showing you some features of routers that might give you another reason to upgrade what you've got besides security, range, and performance. I'm also covering a lot more USB storage devices and NAS devices. And then when I get bored of that, or if I get burned out on that, then I'm gonna switch it up. I'll still be doing PC builds, repairs, laptops. However, it's not going to be as much of that in 2023 as there has been in 2021 and 2022. Those jobs are very expensive videos to make, and there is a ton of labor that I don't get paid back for in order to complete the system and ship it and then support it, indefinitely. So that's starting to drag me down and take me away from new projects because I keep getting pulled back from old ones, and that's just not going to be sustainable for me. Furthermore, I'm kind of bored. So a couple companies reached out to me, and I reached out to a couple companies in the mini PC space. Now, if you're familiar, the first mini PC that I ever introduced, back when Intel introduced the NUC, was a Core i3, and it's from a video I did in April of 2013. And I wanted to evaluate how reliable are these things, how useful are they? And unlike most content creators here on YouTube or reviews you read online, I want to live with it, not just review it for a couple days and then make a recommendation whether or not to buy it or not. Now, I realize, learning that it's a recommendation years later, you can't buy it anymore. It's been replaced. But we can get a gist of what to expect, or at least from that manufacturer or that specific design. Are there overheating problems? Are there limitations with expansion or any compatibility issues? So that machine has been in use since 2013, April of 2013. It's in use today, right now, back over at Studio A. And well, it's starting to feel a little slow. I mean, it's being used now to remote into work, which it never did before in its life, ever since the pandemic started. That machine had a whole new purpose, and it's been running flawlessly. The reason that update's important is that we get to know, hey, if that's the way that worked, they've only gotten better, and it might be a great solution for your needs, whether you need a home theater PC or you don't have a lot of desk space. So this company reached out to me with the Intel NUC 12. That's a 12th generation Intel. And I've got a link to this product that takes you to Amazon. So you're looking about $650, but what do you see how this is decked out? And if you tried to build this machine, buy the motherboard, buy the power supply, buy the case, buy the CPU, buy the RAM, buy the storage, buy the operating system, install the operating system, install the drivers, activate the operating system, do your cable management, I think you'll find you're going to come out to just around $700. It would cost you more. So this is more limited than something you would build yourself, in the way that there's no graphics cards we're going to be adding. We're going to be using onboard graphics. These NUCs are primarily designed for regular home use and regular business use. Yes, I could edit videos on this. I could edit photos on this. Wouldn't be the most ideal thing for a content creator to use, but it'll absolutely do it. At least it should be able to do it. I'm basing that assumption on the last few mini PCs I've reviewed, both AMD-based and Intel-based, from the folks at B-Link, the folks over at Minis Forum. And now we've got an official Intel NUC right here. I've left it all sealed up for you guys, so we'll do the complete unboxing. You'll see how it's packed. We'll go through the process. So if you think something like this is for you, you'll know exactly what to expect when you get it, and you'll know what to do with it and how to get it set up. You can start using it right away. Before I go any further, a quick shout out and a thank you to my good friend Buster, otherwise known as Peter Laycock. Peter joins us in the chat. He has a regular 50-pound contribution every time. He's such a generous man. You know, I almost feel obligated to jump on a plane, fly out to Scotland, and shake this man's hand. It's thanks to folks like Peter Laycock and their generosity of supporting the channel that I'm able to make as many videos as I've been making lately. Peter also gave a contribution earlier with a PayPal contribution, which is very generous and helps to enable me to go out and buy products like routers. And luckily with the mini PCs, the companies have been sending these to me, but if necessary, if there's one I want to review and the company won't send me one, I can buy one. And all the money that is contributed from viewers is never expected, but it's always appreciated, and it all goes back into the channel for more content for everybody to enjoy. So a heartfelt thank you to Peter. Peter says, "Good evening, Kerry and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 41 degrees Fahrenheit or a -5 degrees Celsius. I'll watch this tomorrow, where it's 8 p.m. currently for him and time for bed. He's got to get up early for work. Thank you, Peter. I will see you tomorrow." And again, thank you for your continued generosity and support. XRod666, another frequent contributor here, with a $10 super chat, says, "Hey, what's up, Kerry? I'm sorry I missed the members-only live stream the other day. Also, what do you think of Ubiquiti wireless access points?" I would use Ubiquiti wireless access points in a house. However, in a large business, medium to large, that's traditionally where they are deployed. They can be very technical and have a lot of features that most home users don't benefit from. It's a bit overkill for most home users. I recommend, if you're a home user, stick with Netgear, Asus, or TP-Link. Those are your most user-friendly, consumer-friendly routers that offer the features that most users won't even use, but if there are features they need, they're typically in the consumer-based routers. Of course, the more expensive the router, the more features it's going to have. When it comes to Ubiquiti, I've never deployed a Ubiquiti hardware in my life, never done it. One of my customers hired somebody to upgrade their network, and they put a Ubiquiti Dream Machine in along with a Ubiquiti camera system, along with Ubiquiti access points. They look like little smoke detectors up in the ceiling, so they're sort of out of the way. I would have not gone that approach. It cost a lot of money. Ubiquiti equipment is not cheap. If you try to buy anything from Ubiquiti on Amazon, for example, you'll see that it doesn't ship from Amazon. It's shipping from some third party, and you won't see returns. I haven't seen any returned items. Maybe there are some returned items, but they're coming from a third party, and they're really controlling the prices. And they just charge too much money for me and my clients. It's ridiculous. If my client wanted to put security cameras in, I would have used the Synology NAS they already have and downloaded a little app for the Synology called Video Server. And then you can just use whatever cameras you want, which would be way cheaper. I mean, these cameras cost thousands of dollars. We could have bought some regular old cameras that are smaller, easier to install. You know, if they break, you just replace them because they're so cheap. We would have saved money on replacing the router with that Dream Machine from Ubiquiti. I have a big learning curve to support that now because the person who installed it doesn't want to support it, so it's falling on me. All I've done at this point is back the router configuration up. So at the very least, if something should happen, I can always restore the router configuration. But I have no idea what this guy changed in this router for the camera system and for everything else. So it would be nearly impossible for me to set that back the way it was without guessing and then waiting for the calls to come in. This doesn't work, that doesn't work. And eventually we'd get it all configured. So I don't have real good things to say about Ubiquiti because it's a bit over my pay grade, but they do make good equipment. It's just overkill for the types of customers that I service in my business. But thank you for the question. Thank you for the contribution. And a shout out and a thanks to Roy Starman, who contributes $10 via Super Chat and says, it's been a while. Merry Christmas to all. Hey, happy holidays to everybody. Let's get this unboxed. Now, just as a reminder, we go over to Amazon. I want to go over what this is. So let me share my screen with you here. I have to go to OBS and locate my source. There it is. And if I click this button and this button, hey, I love it when it works. All right, you'll see the Intel NUC Mini PC. It's a 12th gen Core i5. It's the 1240P. It's got 32 gigs of RAM, DDR4, obviously because it's Gen 12. 512 gig solid state NVMe drive is installed. It's got Windows 11 already installed. And they got a typo, HIDM. HDMI 2.0 ports, USB 3.2, Wi-Fi 6, and it has a Thunderbolt 4 port for super fast transfers if you have a Thunderbolt device. So really, really aimed at business use, although it would work fine. Probably be a little overkill for most home users, depending on the home user. And of course, we've got the details about the item here. You'll see it's got 4 out of 5 stars out of only 10 ratings. Oh, somebody didn't like it. This person's trying to play games on this. This isn't really a gaming machine. We've already reviewed some that would be better suited to that. It's important that you use your tools what they're designed to be used for. Don't use a screwdriver as a hammer. Don't use a butter knife as a screwdriver. It's just not a smart thing to do. But I'm not surprised somebody who's trying to play games on it would be disappointed, as it's not really promoted as a gaming machine. But it does appear to be a very thorough review, and it looks like the only 1-star review. So somebody wasn't happy, but I also think that person had unrealistic expectations. Otherwise, we have multiple 5-star reviews here, which I'm just skimming through. I'm not even going to read them. And yeah, if it never had any 3, 2, or 1-star reviews, I would be very suspicious. So this is what we're going to look at today. And what do the pictures look like here? Let's take a quick look at the stock photos. All right, this is what I'm expecting to find in the box. 3200 megahertz DDR4, Cinebench rating. There's all our ports. Supports 4K 60 hertz on the HDMI ports, and it will support dual 4K. It does say games, but you know, games could be solitaire. Games could be, you know, massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So many different types of games. There could be retro games, sports games, first-person games. Anyway, so I would not personally buy this to play games on it because I think I would not be happy with it. However, for just about anything else, it should be absolutely mind-blowing. So we're going to find out here as I unbox this. And I welcome Marlena DG, who's become a supporter. Thank you for supporting the channel. Now, let me just start getting this unpacked and we'll talk some more. I have a lot more to talk about, but I know that when I get this hooked up, we're going to need to sit a bit to wait for Windows updates. So while it's doing that, I'll up with the chat room conversation. So these videos are live, uncensored, unedited. It's all done with one take. And, you know, mistakes are made. I'm a human being. They're not life or death mistakes. Sometimes I misspeak. Sometimes I make assumptions that are incorrect just based on being in this industry for so long. I kind of get into this like, been there, done that sort of thing. But I will make corrections as I am aware that corrections need to be made. And preferably I'll do it while we're live and not have to make, you know, comments that people don't see below the video. That never happens. All right, so here we go. We're going to do our unboxing. Let's, this is just a little sleeve that was around it. And here we go. Pretty straightforward packaging. Whenever you buy electronic devices, they typically have like a piece of plastic that's put on them. You're supposed to remove this plastic. You're not supposed to leave it on. It's just there to keep the device from getting banged up in shipping. And that plastic yellows and bubbles up and really makes the device age quickly until you peel it off, you know, 2 years later, and then it looks like brand new. So here is the unit. Here's the front of it. We've got our power button. We've got a combined headphone microphone jack here. And we've got 2 USB ports up front. Vents. In the back, we've got our power connector, our first HDMI port, our 2.5 gig LAN connector, 3.2 USB, and then a regular, is that 2.0 USB? I'd have to look at the specs. And then another HDMI out. So that way you can hook up 2 monitors super easy. On the bottom, we just have some information about the unit itself. And did we go that direction? It looks like both sides are just vents. Top is just a nice, simple, plain black matte black finish, so we're not going to see fingerprints like we would if it was gloss black. So let's plug it in, turn it on, see what our boot time looks like, see if it's noisy. We're going to check all that out right now live. Dear user, once your computer broke down and need reporting, please remove the RAM and solid state drive before you return it to a repair center. All right, well, hopefully you shouldn't have to deal with that ever. We've got safety information and cautions. It's all just boilerplate stuff here. Then we've got another little box down underneath here, which should have, here we go, a VESA mounting plate and your Go Faster sticker. And the idea behind this is you can screw this plate to these holes here, and then you can mount it to the back of your monitor, so you don't even have to see this. For that matter, you could, you know, create your own little mounting point against the wall, the side of a desk. It frees up your desk space. Not that that takes up much desk space to begin with, but hey, it's just a unique feature that you have with these mini PCs that would be far more complicated if you were trying to hang an ATX or a micro ATX in a similar fashion. You would need some extra support. All right, so we've got our power brick, which uses a standard Mickey Mouse power cable there. And there should be, as I look in here, there's the rest of our stuff. You're going to have a really short HDMI cable so that if you do decide to mount this to the back of your monitor, you don't want a 6-foot HDMI cable hanging around, right? So they include the short one, but that's about the only time you'd ever use a cable that short. We've got our power cable that I'm looking for, and then we have some screws, which are apparently for the VESA mount, and there may be an option of adding a 2.5-inch drive. We'll look into that. And that's all there is. It's really simple. Not complicated. And I will try and figure out how this went back in. Hey, got lucky. Clear some space here. And let's get this plugged in and turned on. All right. I'm excited to try this. I've been looking forward to this for 2 weeks. This is the real Intel NUC versus what other folks are doing, other third-party manufacturers, which isn't bad. It's just, my original was an Intel, that one from April 2013. So it'll be interesting to see how far they've come in the last 9 years. All right, let me get this plugged in down here. Now on my first boot, I do not want to be plugged into the network. So there's our power connector that goes first. And I need to plug into the capture card, so HDMI 1. Even though they're labeled as 1 and 2, you don't have to use them in that order. I could plug into 2 and leave 1 empty. It auto detects at startup. All right, let's move this aside. Put all this in here. Save that for later. I need a keyboard and a mouse, so I got one right here. I need that Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, it's a wireless dongle. And the keyboard and mouse are a paired combo, so they share the same dongle. I don't have to plug in one dongle for the keyboard and one dongle for the mouse. So it just keeps everything cleaner, frees up a USB port. It's all turned on. Let me minimize myself here. Or not minimize, let me put myself in a corner. Click here, click there. Okay. I better make myself a little smaller. Here we go, and then I'll turn on the HDMI input. Okay, so it's getting no signal because I haven't turned it on yet. Are you ready? Remember, this is our very first power on. Here we go. As I click the button there, you'll see the power light on the front comes on. The system is dead silent. I cannot hear anything coming out of this. 100% nothing. It's hard to tell if it's on apart from the power light. And of course, we're getting video on the screen. Let me continue to make myself a little smaller, drag myself over there. All right, now, because this is the first time we're setting up this computer, we're gonna go through so Windows 11 Pro is installed, but you still have to agree to the license agreement, the end user license agreement. You still have to create an account, whether that's using your Microsoft account or logging in locally. So let's just go through that really quick. The lengthy part of doing the install has already been done for you by the manufacturer. And of course, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of updates waiting for us as well. So, okay, there's my mouse. English, United States, yes. Country is United States. US keyboard layout, no other language on my keyboard. I'm not wanting to connect. Is it going to make me connect? You're going to need a network connection. So I've had pretty good luck lately with Windows 11 Pro, just skipping past this. I don't want to connect this to a network. So I'm going to hit Shift F10. I'm starting to get this down now. And I'm going to type in, I made a little note for myself. OOBE / bypass. Better get my glasses out. NRO. Oh, and it's not typing anything? Whoopsie. Let me do that again. Shift F10. Why is my keyboard not typing? There we go. Didn't have the area focused. OOBE / bypass NRO. Now it should restart, and that will bypass the login requirement. Why that's important to me is these computers typically go to customers. When I build a computer, even though this computer was sent to me for review, I will always do things consistently the same. This is how teaching is done. And so I'm going to create a local account, whereas before, by forcing you to connect to a network, it's forcing you to create or to utilize a Microsoft account. Now, I wouldn't want to sign into my own Microsoft account, or even a generic one that I use for builds, and then send it to the customer that way. I'm going to create a local account and use a generic name like user with no password. When the customer gets it, then they can leave it as is. They can change the name to their name or any name they want. Or if they have a Microsoft account, they are free to create. If they want to make one, they're welcome to do that. There's no harm in having it. It's just obviously not a professional way to run my business, to be signing into accounts that don't belong to customers and then expect that they're going to log me out, or I have to log out, and then I have to create a local account and go backwards, and it leaves this cache on the drive. So anyway, long-winded there, but yes, we're going to go through this again, and this time it should bypass that login requirement. So I'm answering these same exact questions, starting over, and providing the same answers, but now I have a little option here that says I don't have internet. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to continue with limited setup. Windows 10 does the same thing, it just looks a little different. We've got the license agreement you have to accept, and I'm going to just use the username of user like I always do, leave the password field blank, and I always leave location settings on so the date and time will be self-maintaining. And if I want, or if the customer types in like, where's a restaurant near me, then it's like, well, where are you? With location settings on, it gets a general idea of where you are. I just find that to be very convenient. Any of those settings, the user can easily turn on or turn off. It's not like they got to do any registry editing or anything. It's right in the control panel. But I base how I answer those on what my clients are requesting or the feedback I'm getting. So that's universally how I set things up for everybody. So we don't have to keep going around in the same circles, just trying to be efficient, trying to nail it first time. Support costs a lot of money. Support is a cost center for businesses. They don't like having to spend money on support. They like to make money from support. All right, so it's going to finalize our Windows 11 Pro installation. And let me look in the chat and see what I've been missing. John Swisher with a $19.99 Super Chat contribution. Hey, thank you, John. John says, Merry Christmas, Carrie. Everyone have a wonderful day. Well, back at you, my friend. Thank you for your kindness and your thoughtfulness. Jamie McGregor with £2 in the Super Chat said, spot the mistake in the Amazon listing title. Yeah, I think this is being sourced from overseas where English is a second language. It's pretty common these days when you buy almost anything apart from groceries. And there's some pretty funny English translations like in China and Japan, mostly in China, that some of which I can't repeat. They take a literal translation to English and they'll publish it as a sign in the public. It's an official sign. And if you search for, if you go to Google and you search for funny Chinese signs and just look at the images, it's wonderful free entertainment. But they speak better English than I speak Mandarin or Cantonese, so far be it for me to criticize. I do kind of give them some leeway with that, understanding that there's a reason why these mistakes happen. It's not somebody who was just not being careful and had a typo, although that HDMI, that was clearly a typo. But a lot of times there's English translation issues. And if you look at the video notes below this video, I started to clean up some of the language and rephrase things because I know what they meant. I didn't finish doing it though, so I think the last 2 paragraphs I still have to go through and look at again, but that's pretty common nowadays. All right, let me plug the internet into the back here. I'm not going to connect it to Wi-Fi. I'm just going to plug it in. We're going to go to Windows Update. We're going to start the update process. This will already be activated. We don't have any product codes to deal with. And while it's downloading on my slow connection here, I'll look through the chat and we'll talk. So full screen for Carrie. There I go. And I'm going to go over to Settings and over to the left, Windows Update. We can look at the date and time, which is currently, let's see, it's a little bit ahead. Set time automatically off and now back on. See if that's going to function. Well, now it's an hour behind. Set time zone automatically. See if that's going to work. Yes, that did work. So it is the correct time here in Phoenix. So me pushing that again was me being impatient. So now I gotta wait. I don't have to, I guess I can close this. We'll just go over to Windows Update. And it's probably already downloading updates in the background. But I just want to verify that that's all working as it should. Here we go. And while this downloads the update, since we are live and this can take a few minutes, it's absolutely one of the very first things you want to do if you were to get any electronic device that connects to the internet, whether it's an Amazon Kindle or a Fire Stick or a Roku or a new computer, a router. You always want to check for updates. Heck, the browser you're using right now might have an update waiting. So with Chrome, you could hit the 3 little vertical dots in the upper right corner. Scroll to where towards the bottom it says About Google Chrome. Click on that and you'll see it checks for updates. And if there's an update, it automatically downloads it, installs it, and then has a relaunch button. And all it's going to do is temporarily close your Google Chrome and any tabs, and then bring it right back up with all the same tabs. You won't lose anything. And you'll get all the latest security and features. And this is true of any software and any hardware. If you've never updated the firmware on your router, I strongly recommend you make some time to do that. Now, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty on this after the updates apply, because I want to make sure when we're evaluating it that we are evaluating it with fairly, because there may be some updates that improve the performance or deal with particular issues in Windows 11 that have nothing to do with the computer. There could also be updated drivers that come in automatically. Since I don't know and I don't want to research it, I just hit the update button, grab them all, reboot it, and check for updates again until it says there's no more updates. Then I can move forward with looking at the specs of the system. We can even take the back off of it, see what the inside looks like. Be kind of curious if it would survive Prime 95 for 15 or 20 minutes. Little boxes like this aren't made to do that, but they've come a long way in the nearly a decade that it's been since I reviewed the very first one. So things may have changed. I don't know. In the meantime, while we're waiting, what is it? It's already giving me a restart button. Install all. Oh, it's installing. I see. Yeah, that's going to be a few minutes. So let me look at the chat and see what's going on there. I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top as far back as I can go. Hello to all my friends in blue. They see Mortant in there, and Alej Depej, and Sarge Tech, and Lana Dro, Vern Maharney, and Dustin Fuller. Ron Barnish joins us. We're seeing a lot of Ron lately. It's great to see you, Ron. It's lovely that you're joining so many live feeds. Bill Wickens says hello, as does Marco Malmstrom and PC Fishing. I see Gerard DeMonte, as well as Jason Willis hanging out with us. Steve Welch, Dom Long, Garfield Rupe, George Armstrong, Zach Bischoff, somebody named Construction. Oh, there's our good friend Oystein. He says, Carrie, is this live? Yes, it is live, Oystein. It is absolutely live. Now, people may be watching this live video as a replay when we're done. So the current time is 12:40 p.m. Pacific time. It's 1:40 Phoenix time. It is 3:40 p.m. Eastern time. And it's Tuesday, December 20th, 2022. So if you are watching past a couple of hours of the times I just said, then you're likely watching a replay. One way you know if it's a replay is that there'll be a comment section under the video. Well, the video is live. There is no option to leave comments. Instead, you can just chat in the chat room. The chat room is open to everybody as long as they've been subscribed to the channel for at least 1 minute. So that way, if people come in to harass, or people come in to spam, or if people come in for not so nice reasons, at least I'm going to get a subscription out of it, a subscriber. So in the meantime, for those of you who haven't subscribed, but you'd like to chat, there's no cost to you. Just click the subscribe button, wait 1 minute, and you'll be able to chat with the rest of us. And if you've never chatted before, we'd love to hear from you. We have a very, very friendly, very smart, very kind community here. And no matter how shy or insecure you might be, just coming in and saying hello is all you have to do. I promise you won't regret it, unless your intent is to cause harm or disruption. That's a different story. So I hope you, if you haven't joined in the chat before, I hope you jump in and at least say hello. I have to say the whole dynamic of these videos changes when you participate, when you become a part of the community, when we miss you, when we haven't seen you for a while. I'm missing Reverend John O'Toole. I hope he's okay. I'm missing seeing our good friend Tony Wallow. I just heard from him recently, so I know he's fine. But you know, when you start to appear regularly in this community, it's noticeable, and people are concerned if suddenly you stop showing up. We've lost a number of members in the community over the years, which is a real shame. But we all have our time, and at least I would hope that there's some satisfaction in knowing that before our time is up, that there were people that we've met even virtually that know we exist and care, right? It's just, I don't know, for me it just makes life more fulfilling. I am not the most social person in real life. You'll see me on camera. I'm a completely different person in a room full of people I don't know. I'll just be a wallflower. I can be on stage. I can talk to any size group of people. I have no stage fright, no concern of cameras, because it's virtualized. It's just not the same. You know, the energy is very different. So I was a very shy kid growing up, very shy, very insecure, low self-esteem, and it was that way for a few years. High school was pretty rough, and I wasn't happy. I didn't like who I was, and I decided to change it. And that was a very, very difficult thing that I did. And to this day, it's still something I struggle with in real life. But here, oh, I'm the most outgoing person you'll ever meet. So if you're like me, I hope that you'll give it a shot and see how rewarding it is to make some virtual friends. I mean, I hate to say virtual. It's like making remote friends. They're real people. These aren't bots. But it's, I don't know, it's just really neat to you know, have two different personalities, if you will. There's the online personality, and then there's what happens in person. I'm nowhere near this bold in person in a room of people I don't know, unless I know they're there to see me and I'm there to give a presentation. If they don't know who I am and I don't know who they are, I'm pretty much sticking to the wall. Or if I know one person, I won't leave them alone the whole night. I will stay with them so that I feel like I fit in. So I'm that way. I know a lot of people are like that. And if you are like that, this is a safe haven for you here. I don't know of any other place you can say that on the internet. And I'm so proud of the community. You have no idea. So I hope you'll be a part of it too. Kelly Stewart says hello. They just had an earthquake over there where Kelly is in California, but he's okay. Malcolm Maxwell says hello. Hey, welcome in, Malcolm. John Schaefer says hello from Spokane Valley. Welcome in, John. Nick Poverman says, I really like this mini PC review series that you're doing. Bravo. Hey, thanks, Nick. I have a couple more coming. The folks over at B-Link are going to send me another unit. Someone had requested I bring somebody on from B-Link for an interview. I haven't asked them, but I suspect based on the emails I'm getting, it may be very difficult to interview them. I don't believe anybody there speaks English as their primary language. And I mean, I could ask, but I think I know what the answer is going to be. So, you know, you got to keep that in mind. A lot of these companies, you know, they're making the stuff obviously in China. And well, they're super folks. Many times when I ask them about, you know, being on camera, they're very, what I've run into is they get very self-conscious over their grasp of the English language, and they're afraid that it's going to be embarrassing for them. So I will reach out and I will ask, but I probably think I know. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be. But the folks over at Minis forums, you know, I'm really interested in that NUC 17X. So they're going to send me one bare bones, and we're going to put our own RAM and storage in it and show you how that's done. And I'll be looking forward to that one. All those should be coming after the first of the year. I don't think I have any more mini PCs the rest of this year. But if some do show up, I absolutely will do the review on it right away. I will tell you, as full disclosure, I'm not paid by these companies. They are sending me these units for review, and I do not have to send them back. So I am not tied to having to say anything. I'm not tied to any deadlines. I'm not tied to having them review the video and decide whether or not they want something added or removed. Everything is 100% honest and transparent from my point of view, which isn't to say that that's universal, all right? So if there's things I don't like, or there's things that I think could be improved, those are my personal opinions, and they're not being held back, and they are not being altered through payments. So that way, you know what you're hearing from me is it's just what I truly believe. So, you know, take that for what you will, and of course, look at online reviews if you're skeptical or you want to learn more before you make the investment. And I'm assuming this thing's going to be great. So we're going to find out. But so far, we're off to a good start. I see Robert McCord Magumi joins us in the chat. Patrick Rousseau is joining us from Syracuse, New York. Sarge Tech says he likes the rack in the back. You know, I was thinking of, you know, putting another one on the other side to have it be symmetrical, but the amount of space between the desk and the rack, it would box me in. So I think we're just gonna have to figure out how to make just that one work. Like I said, I might flip the studio 180 degrees over the holiday break, but I might not, I don't know. Because if I do it and it doesn't work out right, then I have to put it all back. Everything has to be completely recabled. In fact, I've already had to recable a lot of stuff because the distance the cables have to run. Remember, the cables used to just run to right here. Now they have to go an additional 5 or 6 feet. And it turns out I didn't have any cables that long, so I had to go on Amazon and order some cables, some HDMI cables, and some more Ethernet cables. And those just came in yesterday, and I haven't had time yet to implement that. So things are looking up and I have more workspace now, which is long overdue. William Dawson says the change makes the place look bigger. I agree, Wi-Fi 6 is great. Well, Wi-Fi 6E and higher may become the new standard in the future. Keep going, Carrie, with the great work. Thank you, William. I've got some more in-depth router features to display. So tomorrow or Thursday, I've got a couple of Netgear routers that I bought returned from Amazon. And I'm going to show you how you can make your own mesh system using a regular old router that supports mesh. Stop using the Wi-Fi extenders, people. Stop using them. They're horrible. And you can add multiple mesh routers to whatever you need. I don't know if there's any limit to it, but I'm thinking I'll do 2 or 3 just to show you how it's configured and how it's done and explain the concept. It's so easy that once you're shown how it's done, you'll definitely want, if you can afford to, get a modern router if you don't already have one that supports the mesh system, or just buy a mesh router, which is an entirely different beast. And I'll talk more about that later this week and next week as well. If there's questions about routers that you have and you leave them in the comments below this video, I will address them in those future videos. TKV133 in the chat room says, I've got an AT&T Uverse modem router all enclosed. Would it be possible to buy an aftermarket router to use alongside the AT&T modem, or am I stuck using their equipment only? A router is a router. It has no compatibility or proprietary nature. So yes, you can always plug a router into a router. Ideally, you would want to disable the Wi-Fi that's in your AT&T modem router. Just go in there and turn the wireless radio off. If it's not possible or you don't know how, well, then the best thing you can do is, when you're going to plug another router into it, move them apart, because they're going to be sending signals at each other, which is going to reduce the performance and range of both devices. They'll work, but they won't work as good as they could if you just use one wireless. So yeah, that's what I do here. I've got a Cox cable modem router. I log into the router. The login name and password are on a sticker underneath the modem router, probably the same with yours, or you can contact AT&T support and ask them how to do it. Then you plug that router into your new router. Make sure it's a modern Wi-Fi 6 or newer router. It'll auto detect that you're plugging it into another router, so you don't get double NAT and other configuration issues. And it's that easy. Absolutely, you can do that. The short answer is yes. Also, if you purchase your router from a place like Amazon and it's being sold by Amazon, you have very generous returns that if you changed your mind, you don't like it, something about it is, you wish you'd have done something differently, as far as like spent a little bit more or a little bit less for a router that has more or less now that you've got it in place, but it's not exactly right for you. Amazon makes returns easy, so there's peace of mind when you buy from there. And you know, it might be the same with Best Buy or Micro Center if that's in your area. I'm just talking United States, obviously, because that's all I know. And let us know. Let us know what your experience is and what you thought of the whole thing and what you would tell somebody else. Let me rephrase. Let us know what you would tell yourself today once you know the answer, once you have the experience. I'd love to hear back from you on that. Kurt Wallen says, a few years ago, I remember a German Shepherd wandering in the background in Carrie's home. I want to know about him. Yes, well, Jimmy the German Shepherd, he's buddies with Lyle, the Golden Retriever Chow mix that we have over at Studio A. They're brothers from other mothers. They're doing fantastic. Jimmy's much younger. Lyle's hips are getting to him, you know, he's falling down a little bit, but his mind, he's still a puppy in his head, so he just ignores it. He's not whining or crying or anything, and they're both just absolutely wonderful, wonderful life companions. So yeah, those are the fur babies, the doggos. Here in Studio B, there's no place for them. There's no grass for them to go outside. There's It's all rocks, and the plants are cactuses, and they have these thorns on these other plants, and it gets stuck in their paws, and they're everywhere. So, well, I would love for them to visit. Unfortunately, it's just not practical to have them here. But I did broadcast from Studio A 2 months ago, and of course, the boys made their appearance, as they always do when I'm live. Oystein says, Carrie, I just bought the first mini PC you showed us on stream, and I love it. I can even play some high-end, I can play some indie games on it. So what was the first one I showed? Is it the Beelink SEI-12? I can't remember now. There's also the GTR from Beelink, which is more a gaming system. And of course, the Minis Forum, the one we most recently did, which would be the most ideal for gaming out of all of them so far. Let me check my updates here. So it looks like Windows malicious software removal tools installing. Everything else is pending restart. So let's just go ahead and trigger that restart now. And we'll let it continue those updates as I continue to address your questions in the chat. And then we can move forward with running some specs. Check the specs on these things, on this NUC here. We can take the back off it and take a look inside as well. Gert Wallen says, I own an Intel NUC kit, the NUC 6 i5, from 8 years ago, and it runs flawlessly. I only have to open it and clean the internal fan cooler from accumulated dust. You really don't need, you shouldn't need to open it to do that. You should be able to get the canned air through the air vents for where that CPU fan is. It's on the bottom, hanging upside down. That should be all you need to do. Opening it up is just cleaning it more thoroughly. But you shouldn't have to do that unless you're a real stickler and want to make sure it's super clean. But at least to get the accumulation of dust that comes in from the fans, no matter where you live. Some places are just simply more dusty than other places. Here in Phoenix, it's crazy with dust, but certainly, you know, even in Michigan, you get dust. And it just changes the frequency with how often you need to blow the dust out. I would say do it at least once a year, unless you live in a really dusty environment, or if you don't cover your PC up when you're doing any construction in the building, in the house, oh, that can bring in some nasty stuff that you don't even realize is there. So best to cover that stuff up or don't run it while there's construction happening in the same room. You know, replacing drywall, stuff like that. Marco joins us all the way from Italy. Marco moved to Italy. I think he was in Florida and he went from Florida to Italy. I think he's originally from Italy. So, hey, welcome home, Marco, the homeland. Instruction says, wait, let's see. eZooter wants to know, can you upgrade the hard drive? Yes, and well, we're going to get into that. If you can get 4 RAM slots against 2, get 4, it's a big difference. I disagree. When you're running 2 dual channel modes, and I'm not sure the context of this response to who it's to, but just jumping in, as people do online. Getting 2, for me, I think is better because I would rather have 2 RAM modules that can fail instead of 4. And then there's some latency that performance actually goes, performance isn't doubled. So the problem is there's a real complicated timing issues based on how far the RAM modules are from the CPU. And things get really, really tricky on an engineering level. And without getting all technical on you, the base is simply that these days, RAM modules are made in a single capacity of 32 gigs in one chip. So having two of those, you know, that's 64 gigs for a consumer computer. And I'm talking about SO-DIMMs now. I don't think they make 64 gig SO-DIMMs yet. But I would much rather get to 64 using two 32s than using four 16s. It's generally going to be cheaper, there's less points of failure, and the performance of a 32 gig memory with two modules will be better than the performance of four 16 gig modules totaling 32. Now, when I say better, I'm not talking miles, I'm not talking massive, I'm talking nanoseconds. So if you want the best, keep it simple, save your money, and you know, unless we're talking about a full-size desktop computer, by adding more memory modules to this, then the device would have to be bigger, and it's completely unnecessary, and it just adds more cost to manufacturing, which adds more cost to buying the unit, and it adds more cost to populating the RAM to the total that you want. It's also more likely that someone's going to buy two RAM modules and turn around and buy two more and mix them. And yes, it will likely work. However, once again, you're going to take a performance hit on that. And if you're going to populate all four or just two memory modules slots, then you want to use the same brand and model of memory, and preferably memory that's sold as a kit. In one package, it'll contain four or it'll contain two. And if any of them go bad and you have to return it for warranty, you need to return the entire kit. RAM cannot be repaired. It's got to be replaced. And when it's replaced, it needs to be tested. If it's going to be used in dual channel mode or in quad channel mode, it needs to be tested if you want to guarantee it's going to work at the advertised speeds. So for me, running a business, I don't like these gambles. Support costs me money. So, and the customers are always very cost conscious, obviously. So if I'm going to price out 64 gigs with two modules, that will always be cheaper than 64 gigs at four modules, unless, of course, there's some kind of a sale, right? Some temporary sale. But overall, generally speaking, that's the reasoning I use. Kurt Wallen says the main issue with NUCs is heat and dust that builds up inside. Well, you say that, but I've never experienced it. I've got a number of NUCs over the years, and I've never seen one have a problem with dust, but that's true of anything that's got a fan on it. And of course, if you're in a really tightly enclosed space, just like you would with a laptop, you're going to run into the same issue. It's not unique to what you're describing about dust buildup is not unique to the NUC. That's to be expected of any small form factor device. They don't have as much room to breathe. There's not as much area for airflow. And so it takes less dust to start causing heat, negative heat results that you don't want than it would, say, on a desktop. A desktop could take in a lot more dust before it's impacted by it. I always blow the dust out at least once a year. Sometimes, I'll be honest, on the NUC, I've done it like once every 3 years. There's a reason for that, though. If I were blowing out the NUC and a bunch of stuff came out of it, I'd say, oh, I won't wait that long ever again. But when I'm blowing out the NUC I've got since 2013, just a regular amount of dust comes out, nothing that, you know, where I open my eyes and go, holy cow, that had a lot in there. And I don't do it because the NUC is running hot. I just do it because I feel like it. Like it's not going to hurt anything. But I've never had a problem with heat creating a problem with the NUCs. But yeah, your mileage may vary. Marlena says, hey folks, these mini PCs are neato petito. Work great as media centers and work tests. For sure, have this in your living room next to your big screen TV, and it's kind of out of sight. It's not an eyesore. It's quiet, so it's not interfering with the audio of watching your movies or your television shows. They're very ideal as HT PCs or home theater PCs. Now that we've rebooted, and I'm still going through the chat room, I want to take a minute here just to go back to Windows Update and see if there's any updates to our updates. Again, you definitely want to do this when you get a brand new machine. Like we're getting a new network card driver, software driver, Dell monitor. Huh. Wonder why it's detecting a Dell monitor. I'm plugged into a Magewell capture card. Nothing is Dell here. My monitor that the capture card's plugged, or not the capture card, but the video card in the streamer is plugged into a Samsung monitor. Just a regular Samsung TV, I should say. Okay, those installed quick. All right, we're going to reboot again. We're going to repeat this until Windows Update says there's no more updates. Then we get to the good stuff. Stan Aristov says, hey, Carrie and Chad, I'm here for a little while, and we'll watch the repeat later or tomorrow. Well, glad you stopped in and said hello, Stan. Kate Cordius Technology says, I remember those 8-bit boards were notorious for the swollen capacitor. Oh, back at the capacitor leaks. That pretty much, 8-bit didn't survive that. That's why they're not around anymore. That was a big, big blow to them. But they handled it poorly. It just goes to show you, you know, when businesses try to hide things and then it's exposed, it can be very difficult, if not impossible, to recover any customer trust at that point. And then any fines and penalties that are assessed through the legal system, whoo boy, it's just a double whammy that makes it very, very difficult to stay in business. But you think of all the customers that were burned by that, where, not literally, but they had boards that died and had to replace it out of warranty because the company was denying there was any issue. Walter Brady says, I see you cleared the workbench. It's looking good. Have a very merry, happy holiday season to one and all in the chat. Hey, thank you, Walter. You do the same. Kurt Wellen says, the mounting is just to attach it to the back of your monitor. Well, it depends how imaginative you are, right? That's its intent, but you can be creative and build your own device or screw it to the wall if you wanted to. As for anybody stealing it, I failed to mention here on the side, it does have a Kensington lock option. So you can go to like Amazon, for example, type in Kensington lock, and it's a steel braided cable that when you turn the key, 2 little pins poke out and they lock into the steel frame of the NUC. So somebody would have to have a pair of very heavy duty shears to get through the cable. I had a friend who locked his computer down with a Kensington lock. And well, how you attach the other end of the cable is up to you. That's usually no big deal to undo that. He lost the key, and he didn't want to have a leash on his computer. He didn't need it anymore, but he couldn't find the key. And so I think what we ended up doing is using a Dremel tool with a really sharp blade to cut through that Kensington cable with sparks flying everywhere. And we wanted to be careful so as not to mark up the computer it was plugged into. It was a real bear to get that removed. I'm trying to remember how we got the lock out of it. I know we left the lock, like we cut it so it was just basically just a piece sticking out, and he was okay with that. But we did eventually revisit it and we were able to get it out, but I just can't remember how we did it. What I'm trying to tell you is those Kensington locks work really, really well. Don't lose the key. All right, let me go back here to our Windows Update screen and see what we're looking at. Restart. All right, a little more updates than I was expecting, but that's all right. Builds up the anticipation. Nick Poverman is asking if anybody in the chat knows of a good alternative to Windows deployment services to create a gold or master image. Nev Wells says, hey, it's nice to catch a live stream. I'm UK based, so it's getting close to my bedtime. I've got a Mac Mini that dual boots. It's worked well for the last couple of years. I don't cover any Apple products here, mainly because I don't work on Apple products in real life. Only because when you're self-employed, it's one thing to have the job skill of whatever the job is that you're being self-employed about. It's another thing to have customers, or for customers to know you exist. So there are more people that use Windows-based computers than any other. So the process of finding customers is easier when there's a bigger pool of customers, potential customers. If the reverse was true, if everybody, if the priority if the major amount of people running computers were running Apple computers and only a smaller percentage were running Windows-based, then I'd be a Mac technician, right? I'm just trying to stay in business. And customer acquisition is very, very difficult for most people. And it has nothing to do with being a computer technician. And it really doesn't have much to do with running a business with regards to how much do you charge and what sort of warranty do you offer and what are your policies on returns and support. Customer acquisition is a whole nother job skill. It's effectively sales. I'm a terrible salesman. I mean, when I'm truly enthusiastic about something, I can't help but be a salesman. I think that's true for everybody, but I'm not doing it on purpose. And selling myself, yeah, that's always been a struggle for me. And it's very common in this industry that people that are very, very good at computers may not be very good socially, although it is changing. It's changing. These stereotypes exist for a reason, and I certainly fit that stereotype for a long time. And to some extent, I still do, but I hope at a lesser scale. I hope I've evolved a bit since then, but definitely sales is not my strong point. Ant is telling Nick Powerman, he's suggesting Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. He says, I use it for imaging over the network as an alternative to SCCM. Nick's looking for an alternative to MDP. So we're talking about some industry stuff here, but that's always welcome. Bill Wicken says, a NUC would solve my limited space issue. It's just deciding on which one fits my needs. For web searches, documents, I currently have a 7-year-old laptop with Linux and Windows. I mean, this one, Bill, this one right here is exactly that, because you don't need an i7 or an i9 to do what you're describing. And I wouldn't buy an i3 or a Ryzen 3. So your only question now is, do you do the Ryzen or do you do the Intel? It's almost like choosing between Chevy and Ford. Many of these mini PC manufacturers offer both. Obviously, Intel only offers Intels. But you just need to get your hands on one. That's what you need to do. And then once you experience it, I suspect you're going to wish you got one sooner, because that's going to be a pretty big upgrade if you've waited 7 years. It's going to be a lot faster. These already have Windows 11 on them, so you don't have to worry about that upgrade in 2025. Terry Hughes says, hey, Kerry, I love the new work area too. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and to Mitch too. Thank you. And the same to you, my friend. Michael Good says, I've got a NUC 10 with an i7, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 1 terabyte NVMe with a 1 terabyte SSD. It's connected to my large screen TV and used mainly for streaming and Zoom calls. It's a loud fan, but otherwise great. So I wouldn't have recommended an i7 specifically for that reason, that it's going to get hotter, so it's going to need more aggressive cooling. And nothing you're doing requires an i7, and nothing you're doing requires 32 gigs of RAM. Not that that's a major savings, just keeping it at 16. I think you would have been fine at 16, but certainly 32 was more than enough, and an i5 would have been more than enough, and the i5 would have been quieter and cost you less. Randy Phillips joins us in the chat and says, hello, welcome in, Randy. All right, I hope we're done with the Windows updates and we can come back to evaluating this machine and taking a look at the specs. Let me just verify one more run through Windows Update, and let's make sure that we are current and we have all the latest drivers and all the latest Windows updates. There is a Windows update that came out last week that apparently is causing some people to have blue screen errors. I have not had any customers affected by it. None of my machines are affected by it, and I have the troubled update. Some places, some online, like PC World Magazine and bleepingcomputer.com, there are places that are recommending that you skip or wait 30 days before you install this update. But I just haven't seen this blue screen. That's supposedly a big problem for people. Have you guys experienced it? No idea what they're talking about. Again, none of my customers have experienced it. I have not experienced it on the number of machines I've got here. So you could be extra cautious and just pause your updates for a month, but I'd be kind of curious if you guys have had that experience, because I don't know what's different between the people who are having the problem and the people who aren't. There's got to be a common denominator there, and there's got to be a reason why myself and my clients are not affected by it. All right, I'm going to plug in my utilities flash drive here into this NUC. And we'll copy over some of the freeware open source portable tools that I like to use when I'm building and evaluating machines. I cannot distribute these tools. They're not mine to distribute, but you could easily Google for them if you want to run them and put them on your machine for a comparison. So what I'm going to do is go over to my USB drive here and look for my PC testing software. So I want CPU-Z. I'm going to want HW Monitor along with Prime 95 version 26.6, Crystal Disk Mark Portable, Crystal Disk Info. I'll install VLC because I don't like Windows Media Player for video and audio. I hate it. VLC replaces that. It's free and open source. There was a recent update to VLC as well. So if you've been running VLC for a while, you might want to just check for updates. Make sure you have the latest version for security and compatibility purposes. This is a small application, just takes a minute to install, if that. And yeah, that's done. I'm going to close that, and we'll close that, and I'll unplug my flash drive. We're done with it. Let's take a look at the specs. We're going to start with CPU-Z just to see that everything matches what we've been told. I always run the 64-bit edition these days. And again, these are not applications I install. I wouldn't want to give a computer to a customer that I have installed and then uninstalled apps. This keeps everything nice and clean and pristine on the machine. I'm a poet and didn't know it. All right, so that's our Intel Core i5-1240P. All the information about our processor here is on this tab. Information about our main board here as well. Manufacturer of the main board is Intel. We look at the memory that's installed. It's DDR4, a total of 32 gigabytes. We have all our CAS latency and timings here. Under the serial presence device, or the SPD on the chip, we can look at each individual chip. We see it's made by Crucial, which is owned by Micron, I think. It says Micron's the DRAM manufacturer and Crucial's the module manufacturer, but I think they're the same company if I'm not mistaken. So this gives us all the specifications of what's in slot 1 and what's in slot 2. So using this, I can look at a desktop or a laptop computer and I can tell what type of memory it's using at what speed. So if a customer wants to upgrade, I can also tell if there's 2 slots or 4 slots. Because it's only offering 1 and 2, I know there's only 2 slots. If there were 4, there'd be a 3 and 4, and when we click on them, these fields would just be empty if they weren't populated with actual RAM. Graphics, we're using the built-in Iris graphics that come with the CPU, which is why, yes, this can play some games, but it's really not designed for that. Ryzen's chips, their built-in graphics are better for games than Intel's. Currently, that's the way it is. The benchmark I don't care about. We'll close that out. And we're going to get some information about what solid state drive is in here. So let's run over Crystal Disk information here, Crystal Disk Info, run the 64-bit edition of that. And we see it's also got an Intel solid state drive. Now, I personally love that. Intel makes great stuff. Intel makes great network interface cards. They make great motherboards. They used to make motherboards back in the, well, last I remember was the 90s. They had the internal code names were Batman and Robin. For the most part, Intel doesn't make boards anymore, but on a proprietary mini PC, they still make them. They make great solid state drives, but they sold their solid state drive division over to SK Hynix, which now owns the Intel SSD technology and manufacturing. And SK Hynix has named that brand Solidign, or Solidign. But having everything Intel is great quality. It's not cheap knockoff stuff that's trying to mimic Intel. You're actually getting Intel here on your board, your processor, your storage, and your network interface card, which I'm telling you from experience, this is going to be a very reliable computer. All right, let me go back to Lance says Intel made boards through the Core 2 Duo era during the 2000s. I don't think they did. And the reason I say that is they stopped making boards while I was working at Intel. And that was around the mid-90s. Intel said, this is it, we're not making the boards anymore. So I'm not sure which boards you're referring to, but I distinctly remember the reaction to that from within the company. And also, as somebody that was a fan of those Intel boards, they were just pricey, but they were super reliable. But maybe they came out with another board after that, after I left. But I just remember Batman and Robin being the last series of boards Intel made. But anyway, tomato. Let me go back over to these specifications again. So it's a 512 gig Intel NVMe drive that's running at Gen 3. So PCIe Gen 3. So Gen 3 drives, high performance drives, are only going to reach about 3,600 megabytes per second. I think the advertising or the marketing on Amazon for this product said it hits 3,000. That's really good for a budget NVMe drive. If we look at Crystal Diskmark, we can actually test and see what our actual read and write numbers are to this Intel drive. Once again, it's a portable application. There's nothing to install and nothing we have to uninstall or leave traces of when we're done. We just delete the folder. We're on the C drive. I'll hit all and we'll take a look at what these numbers are. I'm expecting to be 3,000 at the top left, and I forgot what it said the writes were, but at least 2,000, I would hope. 1,800 at a bare minimum. Yeah, so I just see the numbers coming up now. We're going to run all 8 tests. We're going to do the read tests on the left first, and then the write test on the right side. I'm most interested in peak performance. What's the best this drive could do if all the circumstances are right? That's going to be our top left and top right numbers. That's our best read speed that we can achieve and our best write speed that we can achieve. That's what I'm most interested in. I'm not interested in benchmarks for record setting or, measuring getting 2 or 3 extra bytes through some sort of optimization. I just want to make sure we're getting the right numbers, that we're in the right area of numbers. It doesn't have to be precise. I just want to make sure that things aren't drastically wrong. Because again, support costs companies money. And when you're a small company like me, anything that's costing the company money hurts. I'm just looking through the chat. If you have any questions, if there's anything you want me to inspect on this, let me know in the chat. Well, we're live here. Kind of curious about those Intel Batman and Robin boards. Probably give me the year of it anyway. Chipset. I must not be typing in a good search because I'm not getting the results I'm looking for. A lot of people refer to boards that take Intel chips as Intel boards, but I'm looking for actual made by Intel boards, and I'm not finding it. They were good boards though. All right, let me take a quick look over here at my read speeds. So the read speeds are about half of the write speeds. I'm not sure what they're supposed to be, but I would expect them to be at least 1800. But it depends on which model of Intel drive we have. Now, we can always easily replace the Intel drive with any M.2 NVMe drive. That's Gen 3 from any manufacturer. They do say that it's a maximum 2 terabyte size, but I bet you a 4 terabyte will work just fine. Would be odd for somebody to spend as much for the storage as the rest of the whole unit costs. I think when they wrote up the documentation, 2 terabytes was probably the largest that was available at that time. The SSD's capacity will always double in time. So we go from 64 gigabyte drives to 128 to 256 to 512 to 1 gig, 2 gigs, 4 gigs, 8 gigs, 16 will be next, then 32 will follow, then 64, then 128 terabytes, 256 terabytes, 512 terabytes. When you get to 1,000 terabytes, then you're at a yottabyte? I can't remember the term now. It's been such a long time. But that's years and years and years ahead. In the meantime, that pretty much completes the test of the read and write speeds. I just need to verify that that's normal. It probably is. So it is a budget Intel drive, but at least with the Intel name, you know it's a good, solid product. It's going to last a long, long time. Statistically speaking, it's very likely to outlive the computer. Now, if we bring up Prime 95, these mini computers are not designed to be, running hardcore processes. Prime 95 is going to max out our CPU, every core that we've got, and it's going to generate, a lot of power consumption, which results in a lot of heat. Now, I was blown away by the unit that we tested last time, where it survived with no problem, didn't even throttle. That was the unit from Mini's forum, where they're using liquid metal on the heatseek application. Now, when it comes to this unit, we're only an i5, so the i5 won't generate near as much heat as like a Ryzen 9 would, or an Intel i7 or i9. So it's anybody's guess what's going to happen here. I know that the i3 that I built back in 2013, the i3 NUC, well, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it would overheat after a while. So I'm going to bring up HW monitor, and that's going to monitor our temps of the cores. So let's start that first. And this does have performance cores and the economy core. I forget what the E stands for. These E cores are 1/4 the size, but deliver, I think, 60% of the performance or 70% of the performance of the performance core. And it all auto balances. And this is why you'd want Windows 11 on a 12th gen or later Intel chip, is it will take advantage of distributing the workload where it's most efficient. And these E cores do an amazing job. A lot of the tasks that we run on our computers don't require the performance core, so we can keep the high resource intensive apps going to the performance cores, and then the lesser stuff distributed over the E cores, which are lower voltage. They run a bit slower, but look how many of them we have. Now, if we look down at our temperatures, which are, let's see, P cores and E cores, we're going to look in this area right here. I'm going to start Prime 95. I keep all the default values on 26.6. I'm going to click OK, and we're going to start cranking the heck out of this CPU. We're going to just put our pedal to the metal here, virtually speaking. I'm going to start a stopwatch here on my phone, and we'll let that run until either we hit a throttle point, which will be probably about 100 degrees Celsius, or 20 minutes, whichever comes first. I'm always curious as to the resource monitor when we run this. I am hearing that fan spin up already. It didn't take very long for us to climb to 80 degrees Celsius like that. These chips do get hot quickly. Are we almost to 90? Yeah, we are almost hitting 90. So I don't know that this, but again, this isn't designed for this. This is not a fair test to run. But I was surprised. Maybe I'll be surprised again. I want to go to my resource monitor here. We'll go over to the task manager, and we'll go over to let's see. No, that's not what I want. You'll see we're just maxing out that CPU. Bring that over here. And resource monitor is what I want to bring up here. Put that down there. Oops. Didn't mean to double click that. Bring that up about there. So you'll see the disk I/O, the CPU, and then of course the memory. Prime 95 is just torturing this poor little guy. But it sure didn't take long, not even a minute. And within 2 minutes, before 2 minutes, we were already maxing out at 89 Celsius. Our lowest temp was 38, that's when we were idle. Right now, our current temp is 78, 79. So depending on how hard Prime 95 is hitting it, it is torturing this poor little guy. I don't recommend you do this to a little NUC, but some perform better than others. In most usage cases, customers don't slam on the CPU like this for this length of time. It usually happens in spurts. So it's a very, very demanding and unrealistic test. I see my friend Ron joins us in the chat room. Welcome in, Ron. Frank Jimmy joins us. Welcome in. Welcome in, Frank. Someone's posted an eBay link to the Batman's Revenge. Huh. So who knows? Maybe Intel went back to making boards. But while I was there, they stopped. And that was the last I'd heard or seen from Intel boards back then. But I certainly never heard of Batman's Revenge. So interesting. And I've missed a couple contributions. So let me give a shout out to these kind folks. Bob R. with a $10 super chat says Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all. Hey, Bob, thank you. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's to you, my friend. Winston Liu said, I sent you Canadian money via PayPal. Can I have Exabyte in my PC Mini? Well, you let me know when Exabyte's available to purchase, and then we can figure out if it can go in the Mini PC. And Winston has contributed 5 Canadian dollars and sent that message 3 times. Well, I can check the phone. We're almost at 5 minutes on this test, and I'm not even looking right now. I've got the screen a little too small for me to see it, but this isn't going to cause any harm. At the very worst, the CPU will start to throttle down to protect itself. Ah, there it is. Mats Olaf Rickardson sent $10. Hi, Carrie. Here comes a new contribution from Sweden. May I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Greetings from Mats Olaf. Well, thank you, Mats Olaf. I don't see anything from you, Winston. At least not yet. But I appreciate your super chats. And hopefully I'll see a PayPal contribution from you. I don't know which email address you sent it to. Ideally, you send it to carrie@carrieholzman.com. Usually I see them right away, so I don't know why there's a delay there. But just to let you know, I haven't received anything yet. All right, let me look at what this torture is doing to this machine here. Well, it looks like it peaked at 89 a while back. I'm just walking up to the screen to get a closer look. And even the E-cores got hot at 84. That's a bit surprising. And we reached a maximum 4.4 gigahertz on those performance cores and 3.3 on the efficiency cores. But I'm absolutely hearing that fan now. If I bring the microphone down, it's not terribly loud, but it's certainly noticeable. There's hot air coming out of that. And that's a pretty sensitive microphone, so it's really amplifying that, I'm sure, if my noise filter isn't automatically cutting it out. But it's actually doing better than I thought it was going to do, to be honest. We're looking at 7 minutes on this test. Seems to have stabled off at around 80, so it only hit that 89 for a very short period. But Prime 95 keeps changing the types of tests that it's doing, so I expect it to spike again. We'll give it some time and let it run just because I'm curious, but it's a very, very impractical test, and that's what you need a computer to do. Don't buy one of these mini PCs and expect it to do that. There's our good friend John Jack Wilson joining us in the chat with a $20 super chat contribution. He says, "This is just for my late fee." I don't know who started this late fee thing, but boy, it's a good thing I didn't make a commission deal with him, because that's a lovely excuse people have been using to contribute to the channel. I appreciate it very much. Ron says that sounds like his dog breathing. Oh, it's not that loud. And it's nowhere near as drooly. Sarge Teg says, wow, the scammers are working overtime with fake delivery notices and fake purchases from Amazon. Beware. Absolutely. If you have anything that claims to be from Amazon, log into Amazon. Don't use any links in the email. Just go to Amazon the way you normally do, sign into your account, and look at your order history. Chances are that thing they say you ordered isn't on your order history because you really didn't order it. Don't call the number in the email. Don't click any links in that email. Those are always scammers. When have you ever ordered anything from Amazon where you get an email that says you ordered this thing? You know what the Amazon confirmation emails look like. They don't look like what the scammers are sending out. Ben Fitzpatrick joins us in the chat and says hello. Hey, welcome in, Ben. Starshine says thanks. Happy Christmas. Back at you, my friend. Can we edit video on this mini PC? Yes. An i5 is not the best editing platform, but it'll absolutely do it. And 512 gigs of storage is not a lot for video editing. Certainly not the kind of videos that I make that go on for 2 and 3 hours. But it will do it. It might take a little bit longer than it would on an i7 or an i9. And of course, we don't have a video card that's ideal for that either, but that all depends on the video software that you're using, whether it's more CPU intense, more GPU intense, more RAM intense, more storage intense, or could be all of the above. In general, video editing wants as much power as you can throw at it. More space, faster I/O, more RAM, faster RAM, more cores, faster cores. And it's still not enough. But if you're making short videos like TikTok or YouTube shorts, stuff like that, you won't notice much difference in rendering time between an i7, an i9, and an i5. In most cases, unless you're doing a lot of like layers and special effects and things like that. But just regular old videos of, you shot on your phone, let's say, and you're under 3 or 5 minutes long and you're putting them out in 1080. It'll take a bit longer at 4K, but even still, on short videos, it's not that big of a savings of, taking 6 minutes instead of taking 3 minutes. It's not a huge savings. When you're making a 2-hour video and it takes 6 hours to process versus 2 hours, then it's worth the investment for the bigger hardware. John said, well, howdy from a cold Texas. What do you call cold there? I'm always on the fence of calling him John or Jack. I've been walking around without a jacket, and I'm like the only person in Phoenix walking around without a jacket. Everybody else has got jackets. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like 57 degrees. It's fine. What can I say? I like the cold, I guess. All right, where are we at on this? 12 minutes, and let's take a quick look here. Yeah, really haven't exceeded that peak we had earlier. I mean, that's pretty impressive so far. We got a maximum of about 7.5 more minutes before we're at a full 20-minute Prime 95 test. I'm surprised. Like I said, it's not a fair test. I wouldn't expect most laptops and most mini PCs to perform well under this test. Nor would I expect any end user to ever do anything this intensive regardless. My friend Ron there in the chat says, try riding around in the cold with the windows open because your monster dog wants to hang his head out. Hey, I'm fine with it. Just hug on to the monster dog to keep you warm. Oh, Mats Olof has got to go. Hey, thanks for joining us all the way from Sweden. And I look forward to seeing you in the chat. Thank you for your continued support and your contributions to the channel. John Wilson says it's 45 degrees right now in Texas. He says, but starting on Thursday, it's going to be a low in the 20s for 4 to 5 days in a row. Ooh, okay, I agree. It is cold. I thought Texas and Arizona were a little bit more similar, but Texas is a big place. So obviously, the area of Texas closest to Arizona probably more closely mimics, although that side of Arizona does get colder. That's where the grass grows. You get to the western side of Arizona, places like Wilcox. Wilcox is still pretty deserty. Go a little further north into Alpine. It doesn't even look like Arizona anymore. It's just big, lush trees and green. Everything's green. You're like, oh, did I leave Arizona? And of course, Texas is massive. So I'm sure there are different temperature regions amongst a state that big, east, west, north, and south. Daco says, I'd love to get a mini PC for Christmas. Well, you better tell Santa Claus. Is Prime 95 free? Yes, John. All the software that I use on camera, unless we're talking about RoboForm or Acronis, things like that, all the testing software that I've used is free. And just simply use Google. Just type in the word download Prime 95. If you want to use the same version, 26.6 is a few versions behind. But in order for me to have accurate testing, I can't switch versions and then compare that to some testing I did months ago with a different version. It's no longer fair to compare. So I always use 26.6 and I stick with all the defaults. When I run the test, they don't change anything. I click OK and I'll let it run up to 20 minutes. We're at 15 minutes and 25 seconds since I started the timer, which is probably a good 30 seconds after I started the test. So when we hit 20 minutes on the stopwatch, we actually will be over 20 minutes. If this continues to run as it has, and we don't see anything higher than 89, that's impressive and quite surprising, really. I'm going to step away for just a second. And checking my email there, I see John Swisher, who contributed earlier here, sent an email requesting I turn him blue, but I don't see him in the chat. If you're in there, John, say hello. Taco wants to know, are mini PCs taking over? No, not at all. It's just more options for the consumer to select from, just as there are different sizes of laptops with different speeds, different form factors of cases, micro ATX, mini ATX, what do I say, micro ITX, no, mini ITX, ATX and micro ATX. There's just all different designs for different people's needs. There is no one PC solution, nor is there one phone or one tablet that's like, this takes over and everybody has to have this. It's just more in the marketplace to choose from. That's all it is. And you just pick what's right for you. I'm happy to see that this market is, a segment of the market is growing. It's not like pickup trucks are taking over for SUVs and sports cars. You know what I mean? It's just, anytime they introduce something new, it's just adding more choice. And if they sell enough of it, then it just becomes a staple of the marketplace. It's like going down the cereal aisle of a grocery store. You know, you have a whole aisle of cereal to choose from. It's not that one cereal's now taking over for cereal. It just doesn't happen in this world because everybody has different needs and budgets and requirements. It's nice to have choice. James Allen says, Wichita Falls, Texas at present is 38 degrees with a wind chill feeling like 30. Tomorrow they say it's supposed to get even colder. I would enjoy the cold, though. I would appreciate that. All right, there's John Swisher. There you go, John. You are now blue, my friend. Glenn's Music says it's many people that are taking over. Right, Carrie Holzman? Hey, I'll have you know, I am not short. My legs reach the ground. People like Tom Cruise and Michael J. Fox, you know. We see eye to eye. All right, we've just crossed over the 20-minute mark, so let me go full screen now so I can see what our end results are here. It hasn't peaked past that one time. It hit that high temp of 89. Okay, well, color me impressed. Let's stop the test. And then we'll watch these temps fall really quick now. And then I expect I'll hear that fan quiet down. So 20 degrees went down, 20 degrees Celsius, just like that. 25. Fan is still, seems like it hasn't changed much. Now it's a little bit quieter. It's pretty subtle the way the fan slows down. It's not a drastic speed change. It's gradual. And then before you know it, you can't hear it anymore. That's kind of cool. A little disturbing. I like to be able to hear it. So because it fades out what's the word? It's just a very slow and controlled slowdown. So I'm not exactly sure when it got quiet. That's the problem. It's been quiet for a while now. It's pretty much dead silent right now. So what did the temp drop to? So it looks like once it gets under 50 degrees Celsius, it's pretty much running at the slowest fan speed, as far as I can tell. And then it starts to ramp up from the mid 50s until it gets into the 70s or high 60s, and then it seems like it's running at full speed at that point. It doesn't get any better. It's an interesting observation. So I'm going to close this out, and we're going to close out this and this and this and this. It's all shut down. And let's shut this computer down, and let's take a look at the insides. Shut down. Go back over to camera 1, and we'll go full screen here. So the unit is off, and I'm going to pull the power cable, the video cable, and the Ethernet cable. I want to keep these together so I don't mix them up with my other cables. Just put them right down there. And I'm going to take the USB dongle out for the keyboard and mouse, although I don't think I need to. And we'll take a look at the bottom here, and this is pretty clever what they've done. They've got the screws in each corner, super easy to get to. It's not like they're buried deep down inside where you got to get a skinny long screwdriver. And they've got these little metal hooks here. So when you take the screws out, sometimes it's hard to remove the plate without wedging some kind of a spudger in there. But in here, you can just use a straight edge screwdriver, pull down, and that should get the cover off really easy. You don't have any rubber feet to remove. It's not like you're doing any destruction to get into it. And I guess I could stop my timer there. Okay, let's see what we get. Screwdriver, screwdriver, screwdriver. I guess I can use this one, I think. Oh yeah, nice. Looks like these are captive screws, meaning they stay attached. So you don't have to worry about misplacing them or dropping them. And I think if I just get a small flat blade driver, I should be able to lift up here, I think. I think. Aha. All right, let me bring this up to the camera and you can take a look at what we got going on in here. Oh, this is nice. I like the layout. There's our two DIMM modules. There's our NVMe drive. And you see we've got a B-key SATA M.2 slot right there, which is going to be limited by size. That's not going to fit a 2280, which is a standard NVMe. You'd have to go with something shorter. Now, there's a ribbon cable attached. Why? Well, you'll notice the thermal pads that are making contact. Let's see. Which way did this go on? Must have went on that way. So the thermal pads there are for the storage drives. So you could replace this M.2 with any NVMe M.2, or you can add a SATA M.2 there. It fits the right form factor. And the ribbon cable, well, that's going into a basic SATA connector for adding a 2.5-inch drive. Super easy. It even says HDD in, so you don't even have to look at instructions. They're written right on the inside of the lid. Beyond that, you wouldn't need to dig any deeper than that to get in here. There's nothing else really to upgrade or change. When you take the lid off, don't pull too much on the SATA cable because it can, the ribbon cable, because it can easily become unplugged from those type of connectors. So be gentle with it. It is meant to be removed, to be removable, I should say. The Wi-Fi adapter, like on most mini PCs, is located directly underneath the NVMe drive. You can see the black and white wires. Those are the antennas going to the Wi-Fi card. So if you wanted to upgrade the Wi-Fi on this, it'd be no big deal. It does say that the NVMe drive is not SATA compatible, and the SATA side is not NVMe compatible. And it's labeled as such, NVMe only, and the B-key SATA is only that type of protocol is allowed. Not much to it. There's our Kensington lock. See the Kensington lock, when it opens up, it's around this entire steel frame around here. So that's a wonderful anti-theft device. Of course, anybody that's, no, I take it back. The Kensington lock is just onto the plastic. Oh, that's unusual. So I guess you could pull it hard enough to break the plastic. I'm surprised it doesn't have metal around it. Okay. Let me set this down. And it's your turn. What questions do you have regarding this mini PC, or any concerns? Just want to set that so it doesn't fall. I'll take your questions and then we're going to wrap up today's video. I like to keep these around 2 hours, and we are approaching 2 hours very quickly. So as long as you have questions, I'll stick around. If there are no questions, then we will wrap it up. Franklin says, thanks again for all you do. I got to clock out of work. Happy holidays and much love. Hey, thank you, Franklin. Back at you, my friend. Cordius is liking the space I've created by moving the streaming PC. Remember, Studio B is always meant to be temporary. I didn't know it was going to be here as long as I have been. And I've always got this, Murphy's Law. As soon as I change it and put effort into it, it's going to get taken from me. But I just said, you know what? It's been long enough. Let's just do it. And it feels better. I can tell you, I like having more bench space. This is more equivalent to the kinds of benches I would work on in in the field, we'd have a bench. We'd have like 3 of these, one on the left, one on the right, and of course one in the middle, and we'd walk in and out. You know, there'd be like a hallway back behind me or a bigger room. So I could have a monitor. Typically I had 2 monitors here and sometimes 1 or 2 monitors on the side benches, so I could be running multiple projects at the same time. Virus scans would take a long time, Windows updates take a long time. Sometimes you got to back up the customer's data before you start any work. So I can't sit there twiddling my thumbs waiting for things to finish. So while something is running a task, I work on the next thing. And so I can get typically about 3 machines on average running at any given time. The other 3 would be for like burn-in testing, QC testing, where they're going to run overnight. And it would be like the final stage before you call the customer and say it's ready. So this size bench is about right. Yeah. Kind of wish I'd done this a long time ago, but I appreciate the feedback. Glad you like it. John Swisser wants to know, with day-to-day general PC use, web and email, YouTube, would there be any difference in 11th, 12th, or 13th gen i5s? No. No, because your bottleneck is your internet connection. So the main difference you're going to find is in your wallet. Now, the other thing is a newer generation should have a longer usable lifespan. So if we're giving these an 8-year lifespan, let's just go with 8 years, and the 11th gen or the 10th gen are already a year or 2 old, then subtract a year or 2 from those 8 years. Now, I'm not saying the machine's going to be worthless after 8 years, but there could be something like Windows 11's requiring that TPM that older machines don't have, which renders them obsolete when Windows 10 support ends on October 14th of 2025. We didn't know that was going to happen until Microsoft introduced it. Surprise. So even though you could have a machine that runs fine after 8 years, it may not be useful. It may not be compatible with the latest requirements of whatever operating system or devices we're using with Wi-Fi or storage. That's typical and normal. But I will say the odds of that happening, if you buy a 10th gen today, you're going to save money. Expect to get 6 years out of it. Yeah, 5 or 6 years. 11th gen, expect to get 6 to 7 years out of it. 12th gen, 7 to 8 years. 13th gen, full 8 years, maybe 9. So if you spend more now to get the latest generation, in theory, you've got a machine that's going to last longer. It's like when you buy a car. Some people buy a new car every couple of years. Some people buy a car and think that's the last car I'm buying. I can't afford to keep buying cars. I'm going to keep this until the wheels fall off of it. So it depends on what your needs are. If you want a car that's going to last a very long time, don't buy the cheapest car on the lot. Don't buy a used car that's already got half of its life taken out of it. If you want that car to last you as long as possible, then you want to buy a very lightly used car, or preferably a new car with a warranty. And then when it's paid off, as long as you've maintained it the whole time, you know, the problem with a used car is you don't know if they maintained it, or if they broke the engine in properly, or if they tortured the heck out of the car, if the car was a money pit, if that's why they traded the car in, if they stopped making their payments and the car was repoed. Who knows what they did to the car if they knew the repo man was coming, right? So now you've got this used car that can't really tell you how it's been treated. And you're in a financial position or a psychological position that cars are a big depreciation. I don't want to keep buying them all the time for whatever reason. So ideally you start off with a good one that you maintain, that you know like the back of your hand, and you don't buy the cheapest car on the lot. Much can be said the same for pretty much all things in life, but I would say when it comes to a computer, just make sure you have the right expectations. Thinking you're getting away with the savings by buying 10th gen because it's not making a difference in your email and your surfing, you're just thinking of today. What your needs are going to be in the coming years, no one can say. What the needs will be for the operating system or other devices, other storage device types may come out that this doesn't have the ability to accept because it hasn't been invented yet. Much like I cannot put an M.2 drive in an old computer from, 2003 2012 or something, 2000. 2010, let's say, or anything prior. They don't have the M.2 slots. They weren't built for that. Didn't exist yet. So those computers suddenly become less usable, even though they still function, they still turn on. And of course, the amount of resources things like antivirus takes, and even your browser, look at the consumption of RAM and resources Google Chrome uses. So then it becomes, well, how useful is it? It's not a matter of how long will it last. It may last 70 years. But, you know, how good is a computer to you today that was built in 1997? And that's nowhere near 70 years ago. That computer may still boot, but who wants to use it? It'd be insecure, it'd be slow, it'd be small capacity. Probably wouldn't be able to install any drivers for anything. No Wi-Fi, because that didn't exist. No USB 3, no NVMe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you make your decision based on budget, based on future need, and then set your expectations accordingly. That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Ron says, hey, Merry Christmas. Back at you, my friend. Luke Greenia says, what are your intentions with all these mini PCs you've accumulated? Sorry in advance if you've already answered this question. That is unknown at this time. I haven't accumulated that many. I think I have 4. I still have some others coming. I will choose one that will remain on the desk for my own personal preferences of which one would be most ideal to suit demonstrating software or going to that machine for capturing rather than capturing off of the streamer, where things get a little confusing for me sometimes. With regards to the other units, I don't know yet what's going to happen with them. They're not going to be in any giveaways, if that's what you're asking or alluding to, but there is a local organization here, a veterans organization, that they could be donated to. I'm leaning more towards utilizing them in Studio B and potentially a Studio C. However, they're not ideal to stream with because I'd have to go through USB or Thunderbolt for the camera hookups, and those things get really hot, especially for long live videos. So at this point right now, I'm not planning to do anything with them because I'm still not done reviewing them. I will likely make new videos for all of the units you've already seen, specifically for Amazon, and that may take me 2 months before I get that. And then of course we'll have some other units coming in, and at some point I'm going to have to do something with them once I figure all this out, and I'll let you know what I come up with. But I would probably be more inclined to donate them to a local veteran charity, so I don't have to deal with any support, and I don't have to deal with people that come to the channel just for a giveaway and I never see them again, or, you know, it's just a lot of hassle with the giveaways, honestly. So I found I get much more appreciation and less hassle from people who buy things at a discount versus the people who win stuff. I've just reached a level of, and apart from the veterans, but in general, the giveaways have not worked well for the channel. They've cost the channel a lot of money, and it has not resulted in the channel really performing any better. It's not working, you know, for the intended purpose. But, you know, look, I could have a change of heart in the future, but at this point right now, I've just had a very negative experience overall with the giveaways. And I simply don't have that when stuff is sold. 100% of the people that buy stuff from me are gratitude, they're appreciative. But it's fewer than 70% of the giveaways do I ever hear or see from the person again, unless they have something to complain about. Where is it? Why didn't it arrive? What's my tracking number? How do you do this? How do you do that? It's like, look, man, my paying customers don't reach out to me that much. Then it's not fair to people overseas who I can't ship these to. John Downey says, I was running a simulation with 10 million data records using R. I had an 8th gen i7 with 64 gigs of RAM in the program. Oops, chat's moving too quick. Where'd he go? I hate it when the chat room does that. It just bumps up. You gotta find your message. Kurt Wallen says the only issue with the NUC is the GPU. I'd upgrade to an RTX 4090. Yeah, nobody's buying those 4090s. They're way overpriced. They're in stock everywhere. I suppose with an external enclosure using the Thunderbolt 4, you could totally do that. And you could afford to buy this NUC twice and still have a couple $100 in your pocket for the cost of that 4090, not including the cost of the enclosure. I think if you're willing to do that, you might as well just build a desktop. Do it right. You'll spend less money and it'll be less likely to be broken with, having another box next to this cabled into it, just asking for trouble. But to each his own. You absolutely can do that if you want to. David Ice says, thank you for the card. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Well, right on. Thank you, David, for your card. I appreciate you very much. Okay, there's John again. I was running a simulation with 10 million data records using R. I had an 8th gen i7 with 64 gigs of RAM and the program would crash and I had to reduce the size of my data set. Will an i9 solve this? I have no idea. I don't use the R application. I mean, it should run regardless. It should just run slowly. It shouldn't crash. Jason Urbank recommends you run memtest to check your RAM. Yeah, I would think there's something wrong. Jason's saying changing the processor is not going to help. Martin Wolferts is saying to John, you most likely had a memory issue, not a CPU issue. Yeah, there seems to be some agreement with that. I'm agreeing with them as well. Luke Greenia said, I asked what you were going to do with those. I was interested in buying one for streaming on my TV, but I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, unfortunately, I still have more work to do with them. So once the reviews are done for Amazon, and they're not going to be as long as these, they'll be very short videos. Only then would I be able to release them. But you'd have to follow up with me privately in an email sometime probably in February. Bill Wicken says, thanks, Carrie, for your feedback and Merry Christmas and Happy Hangover. Thank you, and Happy Holidays to you. John Downey says, thanks for the suggestions. I thought there was another response to John there. Martin Wolfert says to John Downey, I work with very large data sets, optimization and rule processing. I run out of memory relatively often. I've learned to segment the data. Yeah, but running out of memory, I would think it would go to virtual memory, that it would start using your hard drive space. And of course, it's going to cause everything to slow down. And that's assuming you've got the hard drive space and you haven't manipulated your virtual memory file. I've told people, leave it alone, don't play with it, because this is what happens if you do. So as long as you're letting Windows maintain the virtual memory size, it should just keep adding to it as long as you have the drive space to spare to accomplish what's needed. The other thing I would recommend is to go to a Reddit forum specifically dedicated to talking about this R application and see what other folks have done in this situation with this application. There might be something going on there with the data set. On the other hand, I still would double check the quality of that RAM using Memtest 86, which is a free download. And I've got a video, if you search my channel for Memtest 86, shows you how to download, make the USB bootable drive, and expect that to run about 2 or 3 hours to get through all 13 tests. Now, by default, and just let it run by default, it will repeat all 13 tests 4 times. But if you go through one series of 13 tests and it passes and starts the second series to repeat the whole process again, I don't think it's necessary to wait until it's done. Just as long as you get through one series of all 13 tests and it's fine and it's back to test 1 again, you can shut the machine off if there are no errors. If there are errors, then you've got to shut the machine off, disconnect the power, take out one of your RAM modules, run the test again, and repeat this process until the errors go away and you identify which module has failed, or modules, depending on if you've got 2 or 4. But that will lead you to your resolution quickly. Well, not quickly, but it's cheap. You can do this yourself. The software is free. It's just going to take time. If your RAM is fine, you know, and Memtest doesn't detect any errors, yeah, I agree. I don't think the CPU is going to have any issue with this. But I would absolutely be sure that you're running all the latest updates on Windows 10. You might even try Windows 11. You must be running 64-bit. And shut down any unnecessary tasks in the background that you don't absolutely have to have running. Free up your resources for this thing. But absolutely, Reddit has forums specializing to specific software. And these are people that live and breathe it and likely will have the answer you're looking for. Charles says, I have the i7 version of the NUC and I love it. Yeah, well, we did a NUC here not too long ago, a bare bones NUC, and I haven't deployed it yet. It's still sitting on a counter waiting to be deployed. My stomach's growling. I don't know if you guys can hear it. I better go eat something here. Have I checked the NUC for BIOS updates? I wouldn't worry about BIOS updates on this. What I would do is run the Intel driver update assistant, because so much of this is Intel, right? The SSD, the motherboard. If there are any BIOS updates, they should come through automatically with the Intel driver update tool. Kelly Stewart says, hey, Carrie and chat, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. He's got to work both days. Well, I hope you're getting time and a half, man. Hope you have a happy holiday. We're going to be making videos all throughout the rest of this week. I will be back live on Friday, as usual, 1 o'clock, my usual start time, Phoenix time. That's 12 p.m. California time and 3 p.m. Eastern New York time. Kurt Wellen says, I don't like the automatic updates running in the background. I set everything to manual. Hey, all the power to you, to each his own, you know. I love the auto update tool because humans forget, and it's just a matter of time. I just love having that running in the background and alerting me because my mind is on, I don't have one computer to maintain. I've got hundreds of computers to maintain. I couldn't tell you which last update I put on which computer. I need something to keep it all straight, and that eases the burden on me. But if I only had 1 or 2 computers, I'd probably do it like you and just do it manually. But I'm so busy, I don't have time for that. It takes too much of my time. But whatever you prefer. I'm looking to see if I missed any questions. If you've asked a question, I haven't answered it, it's because I haven't seen it. I'm going to give you guys one more opportunity here as we're approaching a 2.5-hour broadcast. But I'll give you one more opportunity to repeat any questions I might have missed, or we'll wrap it up for today. As a reminder, I am live every Friday at 1 o'clock, and then I broadcast throughout the week as time permits. I'm going to start doing, and I've already started doing members only Mondays. These are for people that join the membership on this channel. It's different from being a subscriber, and it's different from being a moderator. These are the folks that pay $9.99 a month. They're going to get a show dedicated to them that is never released to the public. It is a members only Monday. It's what we're calling it. And we're going to do that. I'm going to try and hit it every Monday. So I did the first one just to get a feel for it and get some reactions from the members. These videos can only be seen by members. So whether they join live or they watch the playback, you must be a member to do either of those. This way it's giving something back, a little extra, to the very few viewers who've become members that are giving me a little extra. So I do something extra for them. I'd like to keep everything fair. Doing these live videos can be a little bit of a tightrope walk, and I want to make sure that I am especially making myself available to the people who truly make it possible for me to make more content. Without the members, I'm telling you, YouTube's payments, they're terrible. I would not be able to make the sheer amount of content that I've been making without the generosity of the Super Chat contributions and, of course, the members. And so for those folks, I like to show my appreciation to them. And so this is how I'm doing that. And it's so much nicer in a different way in that we get views of, 10 or 12 people watching. So that means I've had a little bit of a disconnect here. My streams have been doing this every once in a while. I haven't figured this problem out. But all I was saying was, with the members only videos, they're very small audience, like a dozen people. And so it means everybody in the chat can be seen and heard, and we can have more of a more personal videos and discussions. So do know that that's happening. I think YouTube will show you when I'm live, but you can't watch it unless you're a member. And it's just my way of showing thanks to those people. And because there's so few of them, it really makes a difference in the sense of, people being seen and heard versus the competitive nature and the chaotic nature of a live chat like this. And I'm totally grateful for all the viewers, and I appreciate all of you. But as I mentioned before, there's a lot of questions that fly by I never see. So sometimes people get their feelings hurt that I'm ignoring them. They just don't understand what it's like on this side of the camera and how fast stuff flies by. And I'm trying to keep an eye on my audio levels. I'm trying to keep an eye on my internet connection that I just noticed it dropped until it comes back. So I stop talking while it's buffering. And at the same time, I'm trying to keep my focus on what I'm doing. It's a lot to juggle. So I hope you understand that much of the content you're watching is being paid for by these contributors. If not for them, I'd probably only do Fridays, honestly. For what YouTube is paying me, I'd have to pay, come up with some revenue to pay my bills for everything it takes to, live, groceries and rent and utilities and car payments and gas and anything. So when you see these folks in the chat giving a super chat contribution, or you see their names in green as members, or the little Kerry Holzman logo next to their name that shows they're members, those folks are the reason why there's as much content as there is, just so you know. So again, I don't expect it, but I do appreciate when people support the channel in that way. And it's very much directly related to how much content I make, how often I make it. So a shout out of appreciation to all those kind and generous folks, because without them, I'm telling you, it'd be a Fridays only deal. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I don't see any other questions. Just making one more view of the chat. Does Gatorade pay me? Ha! I wish. It's quite the opposite. I pay Gatorade a lot of money. These things aren't cheap. But, you know, I have to drink something. I'm doing a lot of talking. I've been live for 2.5 hours. I am not... Look, if Gatorade paid me, the studio would be a lot nicer. All right, guys. Did I see anything else? Luke Greenia says, thank you, have a great night. Hey, you do the same. Matthew Burden says, great stream as always. We'll see everyone later. Taco says, we all love Carrie. Well, thank you. I wish that were true, but I hope that everybody in the chat is friendly. And John Wilson says, go and get a bite or a bit to eat, my friend. Yeah, I need to eat. All right. Well, again, my thanks to the folks here at the NUC PC, folks who sent me the unit for review. We'll be in touch and see if they're interested in having me review any other of their mini PC offerings. The link for this unit is in the video notes. Takes you over to Amazon. I am an Amazon affiliate, so anytime you use any of my links that take you to Amazon to make any purchase at Amazon, if my link took you there and you purchased something else, I still make a small commission on it. But I don't know who you are. All I know is what was purchased on what day. So that tells me how much commission I can expect from Amazon. Quite frankly, the Amazon commissions often pay me more than YouTube does. I cannot stress how little YouTube pays. It's approximately half a penny per view. So if there's 10,000 views on a video, I think I make $17 or something like that. It's not much. So in order to keep the channel moving forward, in order to keep creating more and more content, besides me just talking, but to have product to show you, either companies send me the products for free, or I spend my hard-earned money, or the money that's contributed by you guys, to go to Amazon and make purchases so that I have stuff I want to review, that I'm not obliged to any corporation to say things or to not say things. You know, you get a 100% honest opinion from a working technician, which is important to me. That may not be important to you, but it's really important to me to remain as impartial as possible, while also indicating to you guys what I really use in my business. I'm not manufacturing the parts I'm selling to my customers. So there are certain brands and certain techniques that I use in the business that are just more sustainable for me, easier for me to continue to stay in business. And if I have an opportunity to work with some of those brands, like Acronis and RoboForm, for example, or VIP CDK deals, well, that's a win-win situation. But the clothes I wear, the drinks I drink, the table I work on, the tools I use, all have to be paid for just like everybody else. This is not one of those big tech channels that makes nothing but commercials. This is a side thing that I do, with my primary income coming from my real job of working on computers and supporting customers. And sometimes people, they get so brainwashed by the enthusiasts that it never occurs to them that what they're watching is real, and that it doesn't have some back-end sponsorship of funneling cash in to pay for cameras and producers and editors and lighting and scripts. No, this is all 100% real, folks, and I like to keep it as transparent as possible. It may not be your cup of tea. You might like those polished commercials other content creators are paid to create on those big tech channels. I mean, if your ad blocker truly worked, it wouldn't let you watch most of their content. So still, things are my opinion, and they run from a very opinionated level of experience from what it's taken to keep my business in business for over, well, it's been over 30 years, has it? Has it been? No, it's been 20 some odd years that I've been self-employed. And there's been some very iffy times where it was like time to fold up shop and go work for the man, you know, but there were some lean times and I had to make changes I didn't want to make. And now that those changes were made, I understand now why, why my conscience, you know, had a struggle with that until I was able to really make sense of it and justify it without feeling bad about it. It's like, this is just the way the world is, right? This is what I got to do to survive. If I could do YouTube full time, I absolutely would love to, but I'd also hate to lose my edge if I still wasn't actually working on computers in real life. So I'm open to it, but at this point right now, probably through 2023, it's predicted to be a tight year. So I'm not expecting a breakthrough. However, I make as much content as time permits and as long as budget permits. And so my gratitude and appreciation, not only to the viewers, but to the supporters, the folks in blue, the folks in green, and my loyal fans that have been watching the channel for many, many years. I will see you all again very, very soon. And until next time, bye for now.